guys, I share comments today in Clash Royale. Today, the 10 worst cards in the game based on win percentage, a little bit of my opinion as well. I would love some good buff ideas for these cards in the comments, or maybe you disagree. Maybe you don't want to see buffs to some of these cards, especially the annoying ones. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it here, guys, with how the mighty have fallen, guys, in the Tesla. So Hidden Tesla has a 36% win rate right now. This was the best building just 6 months ago inside the game. Now it is the worst. As a matter of fact, it is, as of this recording, the worst card in the game in terms of win percentages at 36%. So yeah, I would love to see a buff back to the Tesla. Right now, Cannon. Who would have thought Cannon, Bomb Tower, Inferno Tower seeing so much more action and utility versus the Tesla. All right, next up, guys, is going to be a 3 elixir card. It is the Goblin Gang. Goblin Gang, 39% win rate right now. Oof. How do you buff the Goblin Gang? Do you buff just the regular goblins? I think that's probably the answer here. Just buff the goblins. I think adding a little bit of separation to their spawn on the original goblin card was not enough for a rework. That was the last buff that they've gotten into the game. I would like to see a little bit more DPS, help differentiate the value you can get from cards like goblins and Goblin Gang versus guards who can just take a hit with their shield. They're more spell resilient as well, aside from arrows. So how would you buff goblins and Goblin Gang? Because goblins are the next card, kind of a 2-for-1 here. 43% win rate, very, very low for poor old goblins. Only really see them in like one deck, the Happy Noob Viper deck, XC NATO Hog Rider, and that's really it in terms of meta for the Gobbos. All right, next up is the second worst card in the game if we're just going by win percentages, and it's the Firecracker, man. Firecracker, 36% win rate. What happened to Firecracker? What happened to her? Still an annoying card to go against, but it's also almost like a free King Tower activation when you go against her. How would you buff the Firecracker, guys? Would you give her more knockback, make her even more annoying in that regard? I'm not sure what the answer is. If you give her enough knockback, no. Because then it would make it easier to activate King Tower. So how would you buff her? Just buff damage, maybe? I'm seeing a lot of people use Firecracker more akin to the way they use Magic Archer, trying to line up that damage and get that ancillary damage onto the tower. But still, the results have not been that great at 36% win rate. All right, next up is going to be, oh man, it's perennially the worst spawner in the game, and it remains that way to the day. Is it boosted right now? It's the Barbarian Hut, the worst spawner in Clash Royale at 38% win rate, although there's another spawner, and it's probably not the one that you guys are guessing, is going to give it a run for its money for the worst spawner in the game right now. Barbarian Hut, it's just hard to get the 7 elixir value back from the card. It's such a big investment that I don't know. But then again, this is probably the one card, or maybe the 2 cards on the list, I don't want to see them buff these cards, right? I'm cool with a world that spawners is not a viable archetype inside the game, except for when you're trolling your opponent. How about you guys? How do you feel about that? All right, next up is going to be, oh man, what do they do to the little purple blob, the little purple monster? Elixir Golem, what did they do? That rework was a hard nerf on this card, guys, to the tune of 43% win rate on the Elixir Golem. I don't know, do they revert that rework? They said they were not done on this card. Then again, similar to what I said about the Barb Hut, I hated when Elixir Golem was so pervasive, so annoying. Could they do adjustments similar to what they did to the Royal Giant and the Elite Barbarians? Those OG players out there remember, hey, 5 years ago, 40 years ago, everybody was complaining about how toxic those cards were. They found a way to balance them where they're not that annoying. Granted, that was due to mainly over leveling, where Elixir Golem, it's due to the mechanics of the card when it's strong. Right now, it's not. So I don't know. I'm on the fence on whether it should get a buff or a rework, or we just leave that card to die where it is. Next up is going to be really the companion of the Elixir Golem. It's the Battle Healer at a 44% win rate. Battle Healer is just so one-dimensional. Give me the knight all day, every day. She doesn't synergize that well with other cards other than the Elixir Golem on these big rage pushes. I think you can easily just give her a small stat buff, though. Give her a little bit more HP. Help justify her use case in other decks that need a kind of a melee ground tank and a little bit of healing. So I would just give her a simple stat that buff and help to maybe differentiate herself away from the Elixir Golem archetypes. All right, next up is going to be probably the most polarizing card on the list. It is Wizard. Wizard has an abysmal 36% win rates. That is atrocious. It's awful, guys. 36% win rate. I don't know. What else do I have to say? It's one of the worst cards in the game, the third worst card after Tesla and Firecracker in terms of win percentages inside all of Clash Royale. So what do we do about the Wizard? I say nothing. I say nothing. It is an expensive card for 5 Elixir, but it does reign supreme in the mid and lower ladder, and I think that's a fine, viable use case for a card in the game. Not every card needs to be OP or super strong at all levels of the game, so I'm actually okay with the Wizard the way that it is. The next card, though, I might be in the minority here, but it's actually the Witch. So the Witch currently has a pretty bad 41% win rate. So again, all these cards are the lower end of win percentages inside the game. Of course, we can't read everything into win percentages. It's a great stat. It's the stat I care the most about. But keep in mind, use rates do matter as well, right? If a million players are using a card, the win rates are going to be a little bit lower usually. Whereas cards like Flying Machine, like Expo, more niche cards, sometimes the use rate is low and the win rate is high on those cards as well. So there is some nuance there. However, that's not the case right now with Expo. Expo is actually probably in a bad spot. I would like to see a buff to Expo, but it doesn't make my 10 worst cards in the game. Witch, though, I would like to see a buff to the Witch. That's why I think I'm in the minority, guys. I would like to see a little buff. 41 win percent, 5 Elixir Epic card. I would like to see her. I don't know, like, there's been so many changes to the Witch. I forget which version, no pun intended, I forget which version is which on the historic buffs and nerfs of the Witch, but I remember there was a time where she was doing a lot more damage out of her attack, and I think that might be the solution, is give her some of that, not all of that, I don't want her to be broken OP anymore, give her some of that back. The last card is the card that I mentioned is the other spawner, and it's not the Goblin Hut, guys. Surprisingly, the Furnace have really fallen off from one of the best spawners in the game to now the second worst spawner in the game. A really low 41% win rate right now on the Furnace. And I don't know. I don't even know how to fix the Furnace, honestly, guys. Does it spawn, an extra death spawn, Fire Spirit? Does it need a buff at all right now? I'm not sure. But the fact remains, there's just way better options out there than the Furnace. Even the Tombstone. Give me a Tombstone over a Furnace. At least it has more defensive utility. There it is, boys and girls. Those are all the 10 worst cards in Clash Royale. Forgive the awful British accent. My bad, guys. I'll never do that to you again. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. Let me know if you have any good buff ideas for these cards. Big shout out to Stats Royale, where you can see the win percentages on any cards in the game. Go ahead and check that out in the show notes below. And thank you for watching. And as always, take care, guys.